excited to see your faces, literally very excited. We were excited to see a few of you last night when you picked up your sample bottle over at in Frontenac last night. So tonight we are really excited to bring back the Virginia Distillery, Amanda, Bob, and Dana. They're coming from all different locations throughout the country. And we are going to have them start with the tasting and an unboxing if you happen to have the sample bottle. But we do want to just give you a little update. So Derek and I are still working on the Missouri Whisky Society 2.0. We still have some pieces that are still having to get wrapped up before we can make a big announcement. But please just be patient with us. The changes that we're making are super, super exciting, but they do take some paperwork and some legal things to do to make that happen. And we just can't thank you enough for still being dedicated during this time. This is super fun for us, and we hope that you find enjoyment as well. So Derek, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I want to echo that. We appreciate everyone getting on live right now with us. And it's super exciting to have the Virginia Distillery here and the three of you who work so hard when live, you know, like you help us pour, you help us do everything during the meetings, and we appreciate that. But it is exciting to keep this going and to expand the Missouri Whisky Society. The plans that Elizabeth and I have been working on over the last 3 months or so are very, very exciting. So just start getting the word out. You know, this is, you know, gonna go bigger and better than anybody can imagine. So we're really excited. And we have some really cool things going on. You know, even though we don't have a brick and mortar place right now, we have other things that are really going to work well. And just, you know, it's all around, we're doing this for fun, and we're doing this for people who love whiskey. And that's the reason we're here, you know. So we appreciate everybody that's here, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we'll, I guess, start.
And I was also going to add, we are recording this. We recorded last month, posted it up on YouTube for the members that couldn't be here. So we're going to do that again tonight. And so now I just want to pass it over to the Virginia Distillery team. Dana, do you want to say a few things before we start?
No, I'll let Bob take it over and let him talk for a few minutes, and then he can introduce Amanda.
Love it. Great.
Happy to do it. Good evening, everyone. Derek said we love whiskey, we love fun, and at the Virginia Distillery, we like to think those are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they go well together. So we're really happy to be with you guys. I think the last time we were all together was at Gamlin's back in October of 2019. That went really well, and when this opportunity popped up, we were able to make it happen thanks to Amanda. Since we saw you last, you probably heard Amanda and I talk about, and Dana, our True American Single Malt, which we launched right in the middle of a pandemic. And that comes with its own kind of challenges. But fortunately, with organizations like yours and the 50 mLs that we've been able to produce, we've been able to build some brand awareness and create some buzz. And we're really proud of the fact that we scored 91 with Whiskey Advocate, which is a tremendous score right out of the box with our initial offering. Our American Single Malt is called Courage and Conviction. It's an old saying of our founder, Dr. George Moore, that you had to have the courage of your convictions. And I couldn't think of a more appropriate title for the era we live in right now than having the courage of your convictions to battle through and do what you say and believe in what you're trying to do, because it is tough out there everywhere. I'm coming to you from Chicago. I manage sales for our distillery in the Midwest, which includes Missouri. But Amanda is down in the heartland of Central Virginia, and she is our Director of Education. She has been with the Virginia Distillery since the first drops came off those 2 copper pot gooseneck stills, and she is tremendous at this portion of the evening. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our Director of Education and the First Lady of American Single Malt, Miss Amanda Beckwith.
Thank you. It's so good to see all your faces. I had such a good time speaking with you last October, and my favorite thing is with you guys, you already love whiskey and are so passionate and interested. So I just echo what Elizabeth said. If you have questions, feel free to unmute and just ask them right off the bat. I'm incredibly geeky, and I think you guys are too, so it's going to be fun. If you haven't already unboxed, feel free to go ahead and open your whiskeys up and pour, because You can be nosing with me and tasting whenever you're ready. But I thought I'd go right into the meat of what we're making right here. And I will let you know, Bob probably is well aware of this, but we are, despite the pandemic, almost sold out of our first batch of Courage and Conviction. It's a really good problem. So we just started to bottle this week our second batch of Courage and Conviction. So that is in the works, and it's kind of all hands on deck at the distillery right now to make sure we don't run out. So it's a strange time, and I love that whiskey is a way to bring people together and kind of center yourself too. So yeah. If you are incredibly geeky and want to see everything kind of spelled out by the numbers, we have a really cool website, batch.info, and it does a breakdown of all the components in this whiskey. So you're all well aware, water, yeast, and barley, those are the three main ingredients. But I thought I'd talk to you guys about the barrels. Time in a barrel is really our secret fourth ingredient. And we did something kind of unique with Courage and Conviction. And so a lot of the whiskeys you guys have had, of course, age in new charred American oak. So Quercus alba, it's kind of the base note. It by law has to go into making a bourbon. And so because of that, there are a lot of used bourbon barrels out there. And we love the more gentle use of the second time around. The harsher tannins have been stripped out. So roughly 50% of the whiskey in your glass was aged for a minimum of 3.5 years in those former bourbon barrels. So if you're nosing and you're getting those toasty oak, cinnamon, caramel, butterscotch notes, also a little bit of orange zest. I've noticed that's something that comes out of our former bourbon barrels too, like orange oil almost. That's right there. So we used 37 barrels for this first batch, and 21 of those were former bourbon barrels. Second type of barrel we called this our sherry picks. So we used six different sherry barrels, 2 Fino, 2 Oloroso, and 2 PX sherries. So each of those bring really different notes. Fino is surprisingly tropical and bright. Oloroso doesn't have that layer of protective yeast to cover the fortified wine as it's aging in the Solera barrels. So if you're getting some nutty aromas, maybe darker, rich fruit notes, we like to attribute that to the Oloroso. And then Pedro Jimenez is the sun-dried grape. So it's very concentrated, very sugary and sweet. So rich, dark fruit cake. Those are those barrels right there. And then the third type of barrel that we use to age this whiskey is what we call cuvee casks. And these were premium red wine blends in Spain. And our mentor, Dr. Jim Swan, he was kind of the brainchild behind Cavalon, Milk and Honey, the Cotswolds Distillery. He was just really successful in working with different maturation styles. He came up with the idea of finding these barrels, shaving, toasting, giving a quick char, and recoupering the staves back together. So if you're getting some bright red fruit notes, maybe some cherry or milk chocolate, we attribute that to those cuvee wine casks. I'm sure you're ready to taste, so I'd love to hear your thoughts on aromas, what you're getting, and anything on the palate. So feel free to unmute and talk to me if you want.
I'm really picking up the citrus notes. It's almost like when you light an orange peel on fire. I'm getting that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm with Dana. A lot of citrus, but I love.
Yes. I like that pairing with chocolate. To me, there's something really great about milk chocolate into earthy, darker chocolate, and then the citrus bringing it all together.
It's very good.
Yeah, the finish for me gets into more of like a ginger spice with a little bit of cinnamon, and I like that it lingers for a good while. It really evolves over time.
I'm a dry red wine lover. And this, like, I love the dryness that you get with that. It's not like overly dry like a rye, but it's like a subtle dry.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's very good. Anybody else want to unmute and share what they think so far? Don't be shy.
Something we've gotten a lot of questions on is the distinct notes and knowing the different types. So even though it's about 50% former bourbon barrels, 25% sherry, 25% of those cuvee wine casks, I'm telling you secrets, our future releases are going to be line extensions just showcasing those 3 individual barrel types. So early next year, we're going to be doing Courage and Conviction cuvee cask. So people will be able to buy that and just see those distinct notes coming through. Same with bourbon barrel and sherry. So it should be really fun to be able to set those all apart. And I'm really looking forward to doing like a parallel tasting of the 4 different ones together.
So, I mean, I have a question. How do you guys decide that? Like, are you doing test batches of a bunch of different woods, and are you then taking and then blending those to then know, like, okay, this is what we're going to do for this series?
Yes. So what we do is we have massive vats. They hold 10,000 liters or 2,600 gallons each. And we prototype. First, we select the really good barrels that we think are ready from each individual type. And then we start with a little blending seminar to see, okay, how do these come together? What are we liking? And then we go ahead and in its own vat, we go ahead and combine those. And then we do a slow reduction to get to the 92 proof that we like for this. So every whiskey that we've released under Courage and Conviction, and even our VHW line, the port cask finish, cider cask finish, that's 46% ABV. We do very slow 1% water reductions a week to get to that beautiful mark. And we have time to kind of add a little bit more of this note or a little bit more of that to get to the layer of complexity that we think is really good. So one thing that I was taught is, you're not looking for just one level of notes. You're looking for some high notes. So that's why I think the citrus sings so beautifully. I love smelling like a toasted pecan note and then being hit by bright cherry and raspberry. I think it's really playful and fun. So we're looking for all these different barrels that bring in the different notes. And we have our grading system actually, where it's A, B, and C are foundational barrels. It's what you expect, all the way up to an A, which is, I'm getting some beautiful diacetyl. So yeah, I like that there's a buttery popcorn note in this barrel. I think it's going to be really fun to mix that in and give a creamy consistency to the whiskey.
So do you guys know, you were already talking about what your next one is going to be. So
Yes.
how far out do you kind of have your pipeline already developed?
Tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. I will be working on selections for batch 4. So yeah, it's a long process. It takes a lot of time. Batch 2 is named after Jim Swan, our mentor, and he's the one who really encouraged us to work ahead and look and see the seasons and how they're going to affect things. So I'm going ahead and looking at barrels now and saying, yeah, these are ready. These I'm going to check again in 5 months and see. So I'm already looking at, we're calling those different barrel expressions that I mentioned earlier, the Courage and Conviction sherry cask or bourbon cask, are cornerstone casks. And I'm selecting these really unique special barrels and I'm setting them to the side already for that too.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of trend predictors for a lot of different industries, and food being one of them.
Yes.
And do you guys use those trend predictors when you are selecting your future whiskey, your future flavor profiles?
Not so much as thinking about what would go well with just different scenarios. So I am inspired by food very much. I think a lot of times about how I would want to enjoy this whiskey and how I hope people enjoy it too. I do like cocktails, but I like them very, very whiskey forward. And so same thing with food. I want the whiskey to be the dominant note and everything else to come in and support it. So I'm often thinking about, okay, this is the type of thing I would pair that with. And for example, I have a different dish in mind usually for every type of whiskey that I'm doing, and one that hits like a savory note or a sweet note, and just to kind of make sure that it's a complex enough, developed enough whiskey that I think is going to showcase really beautifully against baked brie with sliced green apples and toasted pecans and honey drizzled on top. I want to know that all those notes are going to be showcased and enhanced with this whiskey, and it'll be a whole experience that you can take it all the way from that to a really beautiful prime rib and a chocolate mole, or, you know, I just want it to be able to be strong enough and have this really gorgeous backbone. So that's what I'm keeping in mind. How would it play well with others?
That's really interesting. I do a lot of culinary events. Angela and I do a lot of culinary events. And so food pairing is always one of these things that becomes a little bit more challenging with, say, a younger, cockier whiskey. I don't know how you know. But what's fascinating about this is, and I apologize to everybody because we've got an incredible like fried chicken dish from a beautiful place right down the street. But the salt from that dish is one of those things that can kill a really good and complex whiskey like this, but it doesn't. This is an amazing creation. So I just want to, I'm still processing a lot of this because it seems to be changing its personality depending on what light is with it. It really is amazing. Really enjoy this immensely.
Thank you.
That's cool that you bring that up. Sorry, Amanda. There's just the other day I had a sip of Maker's Mark and I ate a handful of peanuts. And then I drank my Maker's Mark again, and I literally grabbed the table and I told my husband, like, oh my gosh, it was like toffee. Like the flavor of toffee just like was just exploding in my mouth. I'm like, I did not expect that. It was just so cool to have, especially with whiskey, to have those flavor profiles totally change with one ingredient. So it is key to know, like, okay, how is this whiskey going to play with all these different foods and work well and be diverse enough to do well? Because some things, like you said, like salt will take it down, or other things will like totally take a whiskey down. And it's exciting to see something that can play well with all of that. It's hard to do.
It's interesting that you bring that up because as I take a look at just, you know, that type of a flavor experience, that's something I normally associate with wine. Right, there's a character change and there's an adaptation of flavor profile to food and food to flavor profile. So what I've done, or what I plan to do, I think with this one, is I'm just going to fill wine glasses with. Is that bad?
Love it.
Yeah, they all like to hear that. That's a lot more product.
There you go.
I love the idea of pairing it, you know, like the memories you're going to make, the celebrations you're going to have with this whiskey and food. That just is everything my heart wants. Catherine, thank you. I really love just knowing that each of you bring different memories to it too. Like your experiences have affected your sense of taste. And so you're going to have different things that you can incorporate on your own. And I just love that too. So I look forward to more input from you all.
I have a question. So when the purge and conviction, they're sitting in the individual barrels, I assume you're tasting while they're sitting in there.
Yes.
And then you're figuring out, obviously, and have you noticed, obviously, I would imagine the different, obviously, flavors that are imparting in there when they're sitting in there. And is there a certain time of day when you guys taste? How many times a day do they taste?
Yes. So the best times to taste are spring and fall for us. And so we've had to do some very early mornings. 6:30 is about as late in the day as I want to do it now. We have all night for everything to cool down, and then we can make our selections for sampling. And then also when we're ready to dump a barrel, we also do it very early before 7 a.m. And that's just because in Virginia, the climate is so crazy. You have this diurnal influence with the barrels in hot weather expand and soak up the spirit, in cold weather, they contract and push it back out. And so you don't want to catch it when it's in this weird phase of continuing to expand and expand. It's been weird to see that. And I haven't even told anybody outside of our production team this, but I was checking barrels yesterday and we got our first bone dry one and it had completely evaporated out, which is heartbreaking, but we knew it was only a matter of time. Because in Scotland, I think I talked to you guys about this in October, but Scotland, Ireland, England, you get maybe 1% loss a year because it is spring and summer expansion, fall and winter contraction. We're having multiple expansions and contractions every day here. So just watching that workout happen to the barrels, our annual rate of loss for the Angel share is anywhere from 6 to now 28% a barrel. So I know it's heartbreaking. That's why we don't have to play by the rules of, you know, the numbers game. This is a 10-year-old single malt, or this is a 20-year-old. We could wait 20 years and have a lot of bone dry barrels.
Do you guys age your whiskey in typical rack houses like Kentucky, or do you have a different way of aging your whiskeys?
Yeah, we started out with a dunnage style cask house. It would only hold 550 barrels. And so it was built into the earthen floor. And we actually converted that over to our bottling house, and it's gorgeous. So I wish I could bring you all out to see it, and hopefully you can visit soon. But we currently have 2 very large cask houses. They each hold just shy of 6,000 casks. And they're metal clad and we palletize. So we don't rotate the barrels once they're in place on their pallet. They stay there. The only reason they come down is for us to pull a sample, and they are lifted right back up via forklift to their spot.
And so we toured Independent Stave last year, And when you do the palletizing, are you then putting the bung at the very top, or are you palletizing with them on their side?
They're on their side, so
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, liquid hat.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Good questions.
I really want to see that now. That's awesome. Do you have
Yeah.
pictures of that on your website?
I do, and I have some videos too, so I'll share them with Bob or Dana to send your way.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
What part of Virginia are you located in?
We're just outside of Charlottesville on Route 29 between Charlottesville and Lynchburg. So right there in the mountains, it looks like this beautiful Scottish glen, and it's gorgeous in the morning when the fog is there. It's just surreal, very beautiful and very green.
Sounds like we have another
Oh,
request.
yes, we would love to have you guys out.
That's
That would
awesome.
be awesome.
So
Road trip.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you tell us a little bit about how you guys decided to name this Courage and Conviction?
Yes. Yeah, our founder, Dr. George Moore, had a saying for every occasion. He was a really cool person. He got a scholarship to George Washington University in the 70s, and he came over with like $20 in his pocket, went to George Washington University, and then got into the tech industry in California. But he fell in love with Virginia. And the moment he could, he moved his family right over to Northern Virginia. And he had one passion. He was really into philanthropy, did a lot of great things, but he collected single malt whiskeys, and apparently he had 365 plus bottles, one for every day of the year at the height of his collection. I'll tell you a little side story. His daughter threw a rager when he and his wife were out on their anniversary, and he came back to 100 plus bottles being missing. Kind of tragic. But anyway, one of his sayings was, have the courage of your convictions, and he really wanted to have an American single malt to share this with his family. So it all came together. I love dogs, so hi to whoever's barking.
All right, I think I got it muted. No big deal. I just added somebody in. Oh, maybe I didn't. If you're not muted, if you can go ahead and mute yourself.
He wants some whiskey too, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so George Moore, we thought, well, we'll go ahead and name the first whiskey after him because he was such a believer in the potential for American single malts. So yeah, it's just kind of nice to give him that recognition. And yeah, if you go to batch.info, you can see all the information about this batch. Bob, love the background. That's my home.
I've got barrels too, if somebody wants to see those.
Oh, there you go.
Beautiful. You got those cuvee casks behind you. Nice. Any other questions?
Can you tell us about some of your other whiskeys? On your website, you have several, obviously, that we're not tasting, but it looks like they're available online and whatnot.
Absolutely. Yeah, when we were getting started, we just knew we wanted to get people talking about barley and really showcase the style of whiskey that we were most passionate about. So we brought over whiskey from a distillery in the Highlands of Scotland, and we started to add our own younger whiskey that had aged just about 2 years to it. So our theme for that is Virginia Highland Whiskey, VHW, and you'll see like a split V on the logo. And there are 10 little spikelets in the middle. Virginia's the 10th state, and we finish for 10 months to a year in these different barrels after we've already got the 2 aged whiskeys together. So our flagship there is a port cask finish. This one has won World Whiskey Awards Best in Category every year it's been entered. So I guess 5 years now, and it's lovely. It has just this really rich backbone. So if I'm going to make a cocktail with one of our whiskeys, that's usually the one I go for, just for a Black Manhattan or an old fashioned. But it's really a great sipping whiskey, and I love it. Oh yeah, there's some awards for it behind Bob's head. Our other favorites, we have a cider cask finished whiskey, and we're surrounded by cideries here. It's just so many orchards and really great history. So we got some of our barrels and gave them to local cideries, and they did a cider aged in our whiskey barrels. When they were done, they gave those barrels back to us. So for just about a year, we took our already aged whiskey, moved it into those, and so on the aroma, and this is what Derek was sipping earlier, you get green apple, green pear, toasted pecan. It moves into like a baked apple and cinnamon on the finish. Actually, Derek, you should talk about it.
Yeah, I should actually. You know, I chose to actually put this on one big cube, just because I want it to be like a long drink. And as I had it earlier without ice. Very nice, very easy to drink, but the ice adds to it, and it's a very refreshing, kind of like summery style drink. I could make this a highball and do club soda, and it would be awesome as well. I think adding a little lemon twist would be perfect, but it's great. It's fantastic. I could drink this all night, to be honest. So
Yeah. We thought it was going to be a fun experiment, just, why not? And then Whiskey Advocate came out with their top 20 whiskeys of that year, 2018, and it was lucky number 13. So we have just been going for it ever since, and it keeps selling out. So it's lovely. I really enjoy it. And then we've gotten really creative and did a Chardonnay finish, which did really well, and a beer finished one. But we want to focus more and more on encouraging conviction. So really secret, we are looking at something called Distiller Selects, where every year we'll release just a very limited 6 barrels of something that was really important and a fun experiment for us. So I do have 6 really delicious Chardonnay aged single malts in the works for the future. So we haven't given up on that fun one, and it's really lovely. So
email me when that's happening.
Absolutely. It's gorgeous. The balance and the length of that finish. Yeah. I can't bear to cut it down. Like, I want to keep it cast strength.
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to fly out there next week. I'll taste it with you.
Done.
I'll let you know if you need a proof.
I was about to say the same thing. We definitely need to plan a trip there.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Amanda needs help, it sounds like, with all these sampling.
I do. I'll put you to work. I'll give you each a little thief, and you can just pull samples all day long.
So this is kind of a whiskey, not 101 question, maybe a little bit more advanced, but not everyone may understand what American single malt whiskey means. Could you define that?
Absolutely. So the general consensus around the world is a single malt is a whiskey distilled from 1 grain malted barley at a single distillery. And that's been recognized the world over, but the United States, because we're reliant on the TTB to define a lot of things, the Tax and Trade Bureau, we know that we have a little consensus internally, but we're waiting on them to go ahead and say, yes, this is official. So we have something called the American Single Malt Commission, and it's been a really fun rising tide to be part of. Our founder's son, Gareth, is the secretary of the American Single Malt Commission, so we're very involved. But our definition is the same thing right there, single malt made in the United States from a single grain malted barley at a single distillery. We have basic ideas of we'd like it to be aged 3 years or more, and we don't use caramel coloring and things like that, but that's just, it could vary all over. Virginia whiskey does not technically exist as a classification by the TTB. I mean, it's a whiskey distilled in Virginia, but it's one of those things that we want to protect the consumer, and I think that it'd be really great to get everybody on the same page, so when you see American single malt, you know exactly what it means. So we're working towards that, and I think it's just a short matter of time now. Yeah, that was a great question. I should have talked about that to begin with.
Well, Derek, you were talking about that being a projected trend.
Yeah.
Yes.
You and I were
I
talking.
believe it is a projected trend coming up soon, which is, you're getting more and more people that are, everyone loves bourbon, but they also want to experiment a little bit more with single malt scotches, and it's a natural transition to single malt American whiskeys, I think.
Yeah, I love bourbons, I love ryes, but my favorite thing with single malt is you really get a sense of everything. It's a little more nuanced and complex because you don't have the dominant tannins or the corn just kind of dominating either. You get a real sense of place. And I think that's been a really fun thing to see because I love so many American single malt producers, from Westland to Balcones to Stranahan's, St. George Spirits, because they're all over the United States. You're really seeing the impact of climate on the whiskeys, and they're all lovely and they're all very different.
Can you talk a little bit about, obviously, I think we would all know, but tell us a little bit more about the climate. Obviously, that would be, I'm interested in that.
Well, what's shocking, I was just talking to my friend about it. Virginia is considered, especially, this part of Virginia, subtropical 4-season humid climate. So with that in mind, we have some crazy things to deal with. Our barrels have seen -4 degrees and 108 degrees. So that's something very unusual. If I'm sure some of you have been to Scotland, Ireland, and we have a running joke. January or July, you pack the same case. It's very consistent, 45 degrees and a chance of rain. So wear your layers. But not here in Virginia. It's just very extreme. And we can see 60-degree variances within 24 hours. So absolutely a big fluctuation, but also the humidity. So because of the humidity, we have little sensors placed around our barrels as they're aging, and we're able to detect pockets of humidity and predict a little bit more about the evaporation rates. So because of the humidity, you not only have this oxidizing and breathing of the whiskey and colors happening and depth of nuance with the aromas, you're actually sometimes having the water increase inside the barrel. It's not just the whiskey leaving, it could be the humidity coming into the barrel. So we have a natural proofing down sometimes in certain barrels. That's very unique to Virginia. It's like the exact reverse of India, where it's so dry and arid that the ABV is just skyrocketing.
So that I just learned that. So the higher the humidity, the more chance that the angel's share or the whiskey is escaping.
Well, not necessarily. It could also form a bit of a blanket, but with
Okay.
those big pockets of humidity, you don't just have the whiskey leaving. Sometimes you do have the water coming into the barrel. Yeah. Oh, good questions right now. Drinking cider cask Tullamore right now. Does Virginia whiskey exist as a classification? Not technically, plus single malts limit the blending. Yes. So something fascinating there is when you hear blended whiskey around the world, you think multiple distilleries. Blended can be like a Johnny Walker. You've got 30 to 40 different whiskeys coming from all over. Grain whiskeys made in column stills and maybe one or two single malts made in pot stills. So for us, we don't even say the word blending. When we select different barrels to combine, we say we're vatting them. So totally different. And then Jeff says, I mentioned that I envision a particular collection of food. Yes. When I was envisioning this one, I will tell you, first off, my favorite type of whiskey often is Japanese whiskey, which can sometimes be made in Scotland and brought over, but I love the nuance and layers. So I was thinking of not just one type of food, but I was thinking of a progression. And I was thinking I want to start with almost like an amuse-bouche and go through all these things. So I think what I was looking for was almost like a song when you're looking for a harmony or a medley of all these different things. So I was looking for some bass notes that I really like. So that's where the toasted oak and butterscotch and caramel kind of come in. It's a sweet, but then I'm looking for the complex spices, the cinnamon and ginger and nutmeg and maybe a little clove. And I'm thinking about how that will go with certain meats or like smoked meats or smoked nuts, just kind of thinking of those flavor notes in my head and then going, I want something bright up here stinging. So that's where the citrus comes in and the bright red fruit. And then I'm thinking, how do I want to meld it all together? That like almost vanilla custardy note coming through. And that's part of why I think those bourbon barrels are 50% because they do offer such a beautiful pull through of a lot of those things.
It's great. Actually, it reminds me a little bit of Hibiki Harmony in a way.
Yes, that was part of an inspiration for me. Yeah.
It's one of my favorites and a go-to. It's always on my back bar whenever I can get it. So it's great.
Yes. I have these memories in my head. Like my first time sitting down with a bottle of Yamazaki 12 was 8-9 years ago, and I had a lemon crumb bar. And it was just like this really fun pairing, and I kept going back and forth to it. And so I come back to those notes and think, how would this do with that? How would this do? I want it to play well with others. And yeah.
Really good.
Like
Yeah,
this
I actually experienced that one, was it 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, first time, and had the exact same thought just a couple of minutes ago. It's amazing that you just brought that up. Incredible similarity in profile, or at least in experience. I don't know if we could be good about it, but yeah, just amazing, absolutely amazing. Enjoy this incredibly.
Oh, thank
You're right.
you.
Like, a great foodie whiskey as well, and this is obviously that as well. So.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Sherry has a good question. Yeah. So next release, I mean, we are thinking it could be just within the next month or two, if we have to, of Dr. Jim Swan CNC Batch 2. And then next March, April is the plan to release those line extensions of the bourbon barrel courage and conviction and the sherry cask courage and conviction. So yeah, Bob can keep you guys in the loop there, and Dana as we prepare for that. Yeah, Bob, you want to talk about
Dana
availability?
can run down the list too, but we launched with our friends at Power Play, our distributor in Missouri, again, during a pandemic, virtually like we're doing right now. It certainly taught all of us some lessons on how valuable it is when we can actually all be together. I won't beat a dead horse, but when we were all together at Gamlin's and last year in October, I sure hope and pray we're going to have days like that again, and I do believe we will. In the meantime, this is a great way to connect and talk and share and see faces and drink whiskey. But when this is over and you need some more, we're in distribution at Friar Tuck, at Wine and Cheese, at Lucas. Any place that's a great whiskey account either has it or should be able to get it pretty easily. Again, we launched during the pandemic, so distribution's been a little slower, but we're on our way. And events like tonight, just building awareness with great whiskey connoisseurs like yourself, I think helps us get our brand moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and Lucas is now Dogwood. They actually just renamed a few weeks ago. So those of you that are familiar with that location. Now, are you guys, is this product in Illinois, Missouri? Is it in Iowa? I'm going to Minnesota tomorrow, so I'd like to know if I can pick up the bottle while I'm up there.
Not yet. Currently in 21 states, the District of Columbia, and distributed in the U.S. military on military bases. We will eventually get to those markets. We believe in doing things right and getting our business up and running before we start expanding. Plus, as Amanda mentioned, we've already gone through pretty much all of batch 1. Batch 2 was just bottled last week, right, AB?
We started Monday, so it's still bottling. Yeah.
We're still bottling, and it's not necessarily an inventory issue. We have plenty to bottle and make, but you do projections and you make sure that you don't not make enough or make too much, because obviously inventory gets taxed, and it's a complex system. And the United States, it's 50 states, but it's like 50 individual markets. And Illinois and Missouri are kind of similar, but there's state-controlled markets like Pennsylvania and Ohio and North Carolina that are really different in Michigan to deal with. So we're not in distribution in Minnesota yet, but we will be going into distribution with Total Wine eventually. So that'll bring Minnesota in the fold for sure. But before you leave Missouri or on your way through Illinois, if you're driving, Elizabeth, there'll be plenty of opportunities.
Well, and I can say wherever you shop, if they're curating and if they don't carry the product, sometimes you can say if you have the relationship, hey, I'm looking for this particular product, and they might bring it in. So that's always an option.
Excellent. Well, any other questions from anybody or any thoughts on what you tasted?
Can you remind us of the proof? I know it's 90 proof, correct?
92 proof, 46% ABV.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
this is one of the best whiskeys new whiskeys I've had in a really long time. This is fantastic.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yep,
Very-
100% malted barley. That's all the mash bill is.
It will be a go-to for me. Good, really good.
And
Thank you so much.
I just want to highlight, we were chatting about this before you all came on, but since COVID happened, I don't know if you guys heard, but they figured out this little bottle just for this situation, and they were hand filling these bottles, and they were doing this because they want consumers like us to like really get a taste of this and really understand like they have an amazing product that they want to get out in front of people. And doing something like this is just such a great way to sample it, get a flavor of it, and know like I think every one of us that had this tonight will go buy a bottle. Like this is fantastic. And for you guys to be so dedicated to make this happen during this time just shows how smart you are as a company and how agile you are. And big companies, the big guys out there aren't able to be agile because they're so stacked and it's complicated. And you had the ability to do that. So kudos to you guys on really making just some great moves in a time where you had to be thinking ahead. So good job.
I would agree. I think that, you know, the packaging across the board, everything right here is just beautiful. I mean, whoever designed it did a great job. And I think that's going to help push it forward. But luckily, the juice is fantastic as well. So I think that, you know, great job.
Thank you.
I can add a little to that. So when you're at a distillery and you have a bottling line, there's a bottling line for this, a 750 ml. Can everyone
Put it in
see?
front of your face. There you go. Or lose it.
So when we got approval by the state of Virginia, they have a program called Mini Mondays where they give away a free 50 ml. It's a control state, controlled by the state government, so you can do different things there. So we had to come up with, I don't know, 20,000 50 mLs, and we didn't have a bottling line. So to Elizabeth's point, we did it the old-fashioned way. Amanda and Gareth and the team and Virginia all came in on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, put in 12-hour days and hand bottled these.
It's empty. It's
and hoses. And now we have since purchased a 50 ml, 50 milliliter bottling line, and we will be producing those in mass. But, you know, you roll up your sleeves and you get it done. And I think everybody can understand that. But yeah, this is a great tool for driving sampling and getting people to try it. And we were happy to provide those samples for you guys tonight. Hopefully everybody got one. If you didn't, they will eventually hit your market probably closer to August or September when you have to ship them to a warehouse, and it's complicated. The federal government, there's next to the individual taxpayer, the spirits liquor industry is the highest taxpayer to the federal government. About half of what you pay for a bottle or a can or however you get it is tax, and it's profitable for the government, which is why so many people in the craft explosion has come about. But at the end of the day, nothing is easy. Nothing worthwhile is easy. So they bucked up and they went and got it done, and you're enjoying it tonight. But that is, I think, such a cool story.
Very nice.
24,000 they bottled. 24,000. They labeled. They put tops on. They packaged. They even put the sleeves. It's just amazing what they were able to do.
Yeah, man.
funny. Yeah, fantastic. So many people are giving you guys great accolades on the taste and excited to go out and purchase a bottle. For those of you that, well, everyone should have gotten an email. So I think it was Bob or Dana had listed out where you can find it. Check your email again. That same list is there. Feel free to call ahead before you run over there, or you might be able to order online for pickup. A lot of these places have adapted to that. We also have a survey going out after this meeting. We just kind of want to hear what you think about the product. This was also the first time that we did a sampling pickup a little bit different than before. So thank you to those that came out to do that. But again, thank you, Amanda, Bob, and Dana. It's always great to see you guys. Dana, it's always great to work with you with Power Play. You guys are just a great group of people, very talented, hardworking, and it's exciting to see a small brand really have great trajectory, and you have a lot of great success heading your way. So, and I can't wait to see you guys in Virginia.
Yes. Cheers to you all.
Yeah.
Do you have a toast? Anybody have a good toast they want to say? Any members have a good toast? The only toast I know is dirty, and I can't say it on here.
I know one that says hell, but
That's fine.
Go for it.
Catherine, take it away.
those who wish us well. Those who don't can go to hell.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. All right. Well, we'll see you all next month.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks, Missouri Whiskey Society. Great to see you, everyone.
Yes,
Appreciate
thank you,
everyone.
Elizabeth, and thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.